we are continuing our work with the VueJS beta release from Ionic that supports Vue 3 and is integrated with Vue CLI. I'm building on the application that I had shown you in the previous video, which I think I released over the weekend. This new video and new code sample, as usual, which is also posted on the GitHub repo, builds upon the previous application. This page you're looking at should look familiar, where we were taking a picture, but now if you notice I've added the upload button, so you're now able to take a picture, upload the picture, and then in this list all view, it will give you a list of the views. You've also noticed that I've added a tab on the bottom, so this source code shows you how to do the tab layout. I remember in the earlier releases there was some confusion around how tabs work, so there's some sample code in here that shows you how the tabs work also. So I'll just quickly show you how the app works at first, and then I'll walk through the code. So you can go to this upload tab here, and with the upload tab you can click this take a picture now button. I'm going to move my mic out of the way so I can take a picture, so hold on. Alright, so now we have a picture taken, and then with the picture, you can select the picture. I have some source code in there which reduces the picture, kind of centers it, and puts it in the thumb. And then you have the ability to upload the picture. This is using the PWA components, so you can either take a picture or select from the file. And then what happens when you click the upload button? Oh, that one went fast, so we didn't even get to see all the good stuff. Let me select a larger file so you can see the good stuff. That you see. Okay, so here you have a large file, and then let's hope we get to see the progress dialog. So now when you click the upload, you see the dialog, you get the toast that appears, indicate the file was uploaded, it's cleared it out here. I go to the list all page. Another thing I've integrated is the refresher, so to pull to refresh. So you can see I can pull, and then on refresh it gets me a list of the images that were uploaded. And then when I click the button to view the item, it takes me to a detail page and shows me the items that were uploaded. So that's what we got to show you in this video. Before we get going, please make sure you click the like button, please make sure you click the subscribe button, and then also please share this video to other folks you think are either interested in either Vue.js or integrated in all the awesomeness and the power that you get from using Ionic framework with Vue.js. Alright, so let's hop straight to the code right now. And the first thing we're going to start off with is we're going to focus on the Firebase composition hook for doing the file upload. So here we are in the file. Another thing you're going to notice is that I'm really trying to fall in love with TypeScript and start to use types appropriately inside my application. So if we start from the top here, you'll see we had to import Firebase, which is stuff we normally do. I have my environment file set up in this end.firebase. The links that provided to the source code shows you what the format of this file should be, but the reality is it's basically just all of your configuration information that's required to get Firebase running. I define a specific path that I want the file stored inside my bucket, and then here I'm starting to, as I said, utilize types. So this list that you see here is structured with a files array type, which contains a name and a URL, so that's the type for that. This composition API has some state information that it returns, and so I've defined the type for the state. And then after the file is uploaded, it gets a response, which is used in a couple of places. It's set here in the state, but it's also returned from the function, which includes the download URL, the name of the file, some information on the image, and the time it was created. But now let's get to the code. Once again, this is very similar to a post that I did previously. This is the source code from the original one, and this is the new project that we're walking over right now. Once again, all these links will be included in the bio. But now back to the code. So what we're doing in the top, as I covered in the previous video, we're setting up our properties for this function. We're using the reference, and we're also using reactive here also. There's links in the bio to kind of talk about what the difference is between ref and reactive and why you want to use them. But the important part that you want to know now is that these guys are reactive, and changes from inside my function will force the screens to be rendered when they're being unwrapped inside of the parent or the caller. The rest of this is your basic Firebase stuff. So we set up the ref to the storage where I want to upload the file, and then I have two functions inside of this composition component. I have the list files, which uses a Firebase function to read specific files that are in the bucket that's specified. So what you do here with list files is you specify a storage bucket. This image capture is where I'm adding the images. You say list all, then it gives a result set back, and then I basically am looping through the result set using this Firebase reference object. And then based on that, I am getting the download URL for the file, and then I'm saving the original file name. And so that's the data that you're seeing here in this list. And so that's what list files does. The more important one really is the upload file. What we're doing is, since the capacitor plugin that we're using to capture the image returns a string, a 64 data string, we're just going to go along with that, and we're just going to upload the string, because Firebase allows you to upload a blob, a file, and a string. The whole thing needs to return a promise, so that's what we're doing here. We're setting up the promise to resolve and reject. We're setting some state values to their initial value. We're setting the progress indicator to 0. We're constructing a unique file name. And then we're getting the path for the storage ref. We're using the predefined path from above. The unique file name was generated, and then Firebase allows you to do this put string, which is the data that got passed in. It's type data URL, and the content type is image JPEG. And then what we do is we have this upload task that gets returned, and the upload task triggers specific events, and the events we're looking for are state. I hate how that's popping up. The events we're looking for are state changed. And so when the state changes, what we want to do is we want to get the progress. We determine the percentage. I set the progress value as a percentage changed. And since you'll see later in the parent component, we're listening for changes to the progress value to update the UI that you saw. We have this handler for any error. On an error condition, we set the errors, we set loading to false, and we reject the promise and we pass back the error. And then this just catches on a successful outcome. So when everything's all done, we fall down into this async. We say there's no errors. We set loading to false. We make the asynchronous call to get the download URL from Firebase. We save the download URL, and then that result data type that we just defined above, we just set all the properties on it. We clear the progress value. We resolve the promise as successfully. We return the result data. I'm just doing that for consistency, but as you'll see when we get to the parent component is looking at the state object that's returned, and so it's getting access to result data. And then at the bottom we have this catch-all for when an error is caught. We set loading to false. We set the error in the state. We reset the progress, and then we also call a reject because this thing is a promise that we're calling. When this composition function is first loaded, what I want to do is I want to be able to get a list of all get a list of all of the files that exist already in the storage bucket, and that's what this call is doing. This list files calls, as I set up at the top here. You can see it's looping through everything, but the important part is it's setting this files property, which is up here, and this property, as you're going to see down at the bottom, is being returned. So all of these things are being returned. This toRefs takes everything that was set as reactive and it turns it to refs and passes it back so that it can be handled properly and unwrapped by the parent. These other values, they're already refs, and so you'll see when I get to the parent that if I need to use them in a function in the parent, I will need to unwrap them. If they're using a template, they do not need to be unwrapped and they'll be used as they normally are. I get to my upload, so now let's get back to this parent. So we go here inside of home, and we'll just start from the top and talk about some of the user interface components we're using. What's new from the last blog post? So as you will see, header and titles are pretty much the same. The if loading, I had some issues with the Ionic progress indicator, so I basically rolled my own, which is just basically a div that has a color, has a width and a height. And as I get the value back from my function, which is percent of progress, I just adjust the height. And so that's how you saw the progress bar appear across the top. If there's an error, we render the error. So that's that. This I did not use. I'm sorry. We don't need this here, so let's delete this. You'll see below how I'm handling the toast. I'm using the toast controller, which is imported right here. All right, so going from the top. So if I have an image, I use a little bit of CSS to make the image look nice on the page, and that's what you saw when we did take a picture now. Once again, all this is the same. The only thing that's new is this upload image function, which we'll go down to below. Okay, as I said, nothing's new here. You can see the previous video where we talk about how we're loading the Capacitor plugins, the ref to compute it, all new. Here's something new here. I'm using my use Firebase file upload hook. We call the function here. We get all of the properties and the functions that we're going to be utilizing inside of our function here. We get them inside the setup function here. I'm keeping a local copy of the image URL because that's what I'm using to kind of render the picture here. This is a helper function I created called handle toast, which I can call. It's just going to allow a little toast to appear at the top of the screen with a predefined message. I pass a flag in so that if it's an error, the color of the toast changes to red. Otherwise, it uses the primary color, and it has a default duration of 2 seconds. So you basically get the promise back from this, and not the promise. You basically execute the call, you get the toast back, and then you do a toast present, and that's what makes the toast show. So that's what handle toast does, and you'll see I use it for errors, and I just use it for updates. This is the code that I said I'm using. It's a computed function that updates the style on my div to give me the progress indicator. As I said before, I ran into a problem using the Ionic progress indicator, which I need to kind of wait for the official release before I log a bug about it, or maybe I'm just doing something wrong. But that's why I'm using this progress bar style calc, so basically what happens is every time this value changes, it forces this progress bar style calc to be recalculated, and as you can see, it calculates the percentage, which is the width of the div, which gives you the progress bar indicator going across the top of the page. All right. Next is where all the magic happens. So when you click this button up here, where is it? So we take the picture, showed last time. When you click the upload button, what we're trying to do on upload is we first of all determine if I actually have a URL. If I don't have a URL, then let's get out. If I do have a URL, then let's create a temporary name for it. Excuse me. Let's take the URL that I have, the value that I got back, and kind of destructure it and get the data URL and to get a name. And then what we're doing here is we're calling my Firebase function that was set up before with the URL and the actual name. It's asynchronous. We wait for a response. We log the response. If the response is successful, then we call my handle toast function. We set the error to false so we don't get it in red. And then we show, hey, my file was uploaded. And then we reset the image URL value to null, which clears the image out of the way. And then we just return the results. I don't know why I'm returning the results. I guess it was just a debugger code. If an exception was thrown or an error or something happened on my upload, it falls into this catch block. I log the error. I render the toast with the error message. Since error is set to true, you'll see it in red. I'll just walk through this quickly but this take picture function, it calls the Capacitor plugin to get the photo. Take it 100%. I get a data URL. And then we're just setting the value, and this value is getting set back in my, this value is getting set here inside of this page right here so that I can use it when I need to upload the file. And then once again at the end we're returning all the functions that I need access to inside of my template, and then we're also returning all the properties that I need as access to the template. Once again, as you notice in this new format with the Vue, we're not using the options approach. This is the composition API. There's no property options, method options, data options. All that stuff's gone. Everything's done inside of the setup, and then you get access to it in the template. So that's how you upload the file, and how we already discussed getting the list of objects from the storage bucket. But now let's spend a little bit more time focusing on the UI components that allowed us to build a pretty decent looking app quickly by taking the out-of-the-box components that were provided by Ionic. So let's go back to the list all page, and we'll start with the pull to refresh. So if we go back to the all upload view, composition API structured component, we're utilizing use Firebase file upload because we need the list of files, and we need to be able to call a function to update that list. Here's another cool thing we're doing. We need access to the router, so we use this useRouter function, which will give us the router. We don't have this $ router access anymore. You need to use this useRouter. And so then, now let's look at how this pull to refresh works. So what you have is at the top of your page, you have this Ion refresher. You select the slot to fix, so it's up at the top left corner of your page. And then you have this on Ion refresh handle that's called. And on this Ion refresh handle, that's when you call your function to reload the data. This Ion refresher content, this is where, right now I'm just using the default. So as you see, I just get that default kind of round icon. But there's properties that exist on this, and you can look in the documentation to give it a different user experience that you'll see up at the top when someone's pulling down the page to refresh. And then underneath it, I just have a regular list where I'm iterating through the files that are provided. I'm taking the file name, I'm splitting it, I'm taking the URL, and then what I'm doing is I'm creating this button, and when the user clicks the button, I call this other path, and I encode the URL, and I pass it as a parameter, so that when you go to this page, you can view the image that's associated with the file name, which we got back from the bucket. So let's get back to the pull to refresh. So what happens when you pull to refresh, it calls this do refresh function, and if we come down, I have my do refresh function here, which is asynchronous. I use the function that came back from this use Firebase file upload. I make the call to list of files. I don't need the result here because this function is going to set this files object locally. So this list files will set the files. I'll get the list of files back. When I'm done, I need to make sure that I call this event target complete to tell the UI, hey, I'm done with the refresh, kind of pull yourself back up. And then the UI should redraw with the new data. And so that's how we get the nice uploaded files page, and we get the pull to refresh. And then last but not least, let's talk about some routing. How we get the route to the page, and we get the back button, but also how we have the tabs working across the bottom. So to do that, we're going to hop over to, I think this is my router. Yep, we have my router. What's new here is this tabs. And so you can see how the tabs are working. Okay, now we're in the tabs page. And what you have at the top is you have this default path where it redirects the tabs list. We'll get back to the image detail URL. And then you have this path called tabs, which is the component tabs. And then that that route tabs has child routes, with the default route being list. Tab/upload will load the home view. This is lazy loading, so it won't actually import and load this component till it's needed. List and geolocation, and so that's how you get all these across the bottom. Let's take a quick look at the tabs page since we didn't cover tabs in the last video. So if we look at how tabs are laid out, this should look very similar to how it's being done in React and how it's being done, I believe, in Angular. We have our tabs component, then inside of our tabs component, we have our tab bar component, and then inside of our tab bar component, we have a name for our tab, and then we have the href that's associated with it, which is the path. We have the icon and the name, and it's just repeat, repeat, repeat. Tabs list, tabs upload, tab geolocation. You set the icon. I'm using Ion icons, and you set the name. And that's pretty much all you have to do for your base tabs. Let's pop back to my index page. And then once you render these guys, it's just like a normal page. I covered the normal page last time, so I won't go back into it. Well, let's just to be complete. It's just a regular page laid out as it is normally. It knows it's inside of a tab, so everything renders properly the way you need it to render. And then the last thing that I want to cover is going to this detail page. So if we look at this item detail page view, let's go back to the index. When my path is image-detail with a URL, let's go there. You can see there it is, image detail. I did the URI encode of the URL so it can, be passed properly. And then what we do inside of here is pretty basic page header. We use the Ion back button because it knows the side of the navigation, so it lays out the back button properly. This should be, alright, so that lost that because I was there, so. Now it's in the right place. Okay, I didn't have it at slot start. So now it's at slot start, so it's running the right place. The back button handles the navigation handles the back button appropriately, so it knows I need the back button there. We have the title. Oh, let me get the detail page. We have an image detail title, and then we have the padding, and then we have the Ion image with the source URL. If you look here, you see we're from our view router, we're doing the use route, which is giving me back the route. And then off the route, there's this function params, which gives me the list of params that are specified. Let's take a look. If we go back here to my router, where I lay out my routes, I have specified that I have a URL parameter. So when I'm in image detail, I can get the parameter, which is the URL. I return the URL for the template. The template uses the URL to render the image, and that's how you get the image. So that's basically what we got. Sorry. Once again, source code will get posted for this. Please make sure you check out the source code if you have any questions, open issues. If you like the video, please make sure you like and subscribe. If you have suggestions for other things you'd like to see, please make sure you leave a note. And thank you once again.